Hello, everybody, and welcome to another My Music. I hope you're enjoying your week of music listening, whatever you're listening to this week. I hope you found something different and new and something that challenges you a little bit this week. My next guests are Scott and Mike from the Melancholy Kings. Thank you so much, Scott and Mike. Thanks for joining us. How are you both?
For having. Doing splendid.
Doing great. Springtime in New Jersey. What could be better?
I'm intrigued now. I'm always intrigued. You've got a wall there behind you, Scott, a virtual one at that. So I'd love to know where you're actually standing.
Been in a bunker in an undisclosed location, aka my day job.
Okay, right. Yeah, there are people behind. Janet, bring the biscuits. Okay, and Mike, you've got an interesting sign on the wall. All I can read from here is Pet Hell.
Yeah, it's not about the location I'm in currently, but way back when I worked with the prosecutor's office in Brooklyn, and that was a case. It was a fraudulently run pet cemetery in Long Island. Yeah, I didn't think we would go here on this, but yeah, no, it was quite a case. It was when the same courthouse was doing the John Gotti case. But the pet cemetery case got everybody. Latoya Jackson came there with her pet snake. It was like a wild scene. And that was the cover of the New York Post when the case broke. And the lead prosecutor on it signed the back and gave it to me. It was when we won the case.
There you go. You know what? Sounds like good song territory to me.
That is. That's a good one.
The Ramones already did it for the film, Pet Cemetery.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, they did. They did. Yeah, absolutely. But perhaps you could do your own take on it one day. You know, good stories are good stories. And are good stories what you look for in songwriting? Where do you find them from?
It's interesting. Sometimes I start with an idea and work from there. And sometimes Scott will start with an idea. It's more musical, not as many lyrics. And I just kind of fit something to it. Like UV on the record is one of those examples where Scott started it off with that lead riff and some other stuff. And I had been reading the book V by Thomas Pynchon, and it fit together somehow, and then I kind of molded it off of that. So. But each song is different, I find. I don't know, Scott, how do you feel about it?
I don't know. You're the lyricist. Perhaps I don't give myself enough credit, but I doubt it. I despise my lyrics. I still like the angry etchings of an adolescent when I try to write lyrics. But Mike, I like one of your songs. I think 6 Feet Down came from a particular story as well, didn't it?
Yeah. There was a federal judge here in New Jersey, and she had one litigant, a pro se litigant, that was kind of this really kind of oddball men's rights type of guy, making a federal case out of, why are you giving women half price on drinks during happy hour? That violates my constitutional rights. And I'm like, brother, man, you want to give the ladies half price, right? But anyway, he kind of went off the rails and went down and tried to assassinate this judge and wound up shooting her son instead.
Wow.
But it's about what kind of mindset does someone like have? And that's kind of what it's about. So it's not autobiographical by any means, but that's what inspired that song.
I think it's about just going out and living and seeing things in the world in order to get those good stories. We've been through some weird times in the last 10 years, right? We've all lived through COVID. I remember taking a photograph of a guy in one of our local stores during COVID who literally was walking around with a bag over his head.
Yeah.
And that sort of stuff makes you want to write a song. Yeah. It's the slightly to one side of everyday life, but still has got everyday life in it. So that you can relate to it bits. Yeah.
I think that's true. There's another song on the record, Astor Place, which is an area of Manhattan, right, kind of in between the West and East Village. And it was where I lived a long time ago. And it's about the kind of tense relationship that New York City has with the suburbs. You go there, I'm in New York City, this is awesome. And then everybody else is, I'm in New York City, this sucks, I want to leave. And it's this tension that exists in our city. And I imagine in places like London too, there's a push and pull.
Yeah.
But that was definitely a real life experience for me.
What makes you decide how the song's going to sound? Because there's like beautiful songs on this album, and then there's more in your face, slightly more punky type songs. What decides the sound that goes with the lyric, or is that it's just happy accident?
I think it's mostly organic, just by the members and our influences, our pedigree. Mike usually brings the finished songs. Sometimes I collaborate on part of it, but usually then Mike will bring the finished musical lyrics together as the band. Sometimes it's recorded like on an acoustic into a phone. But then when we get together, the sound sort of finds itself, I think. Just, I don't think there's any sort of forethought on that. Mike, I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, no, listen, there's some people who do full-blown demos and then with drums and everything, or canned drums, and send that out to the band. As Scott said, if I'm writing something, I just pick up the acoustic and kind of just record it into the phone. And I kind of want that to be like a sketch, like a starting point. And then I think when we all get together, they go in different directions. UV being probably the one that went in the most directions after just getting the chords down, which I wrote that one on piano, and it became really much more a guitar song. There's really very little keyboard in it at all. And when that song when I first did it, it was almost a let it be thing, because that's the only thing I can play on piano is
triact.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then we got into playing it as a guitar band, and it just took off in this kind of psychedelic different direction. So I don't go in thinking, oh, I'm going to write a slow song, or I'm going to write a punk song. It's just, it kind of happens organically. And then I think it does take a lot of exciting, I think, turns when the band gets to it. And Pete's not on the here now, but Pete Horvath, he's the other guitarist. He adds a lot in terms of shaping that as well.
Yeah, he's a great arranger, among other things he's really good at. And yeah, I agree with Mike. I think one of the fun things about this band and playing in general is the collaborative effort. I've been in bands where there's like the benevolent overlord or directs everything. I've tried to be that person in some bands too, but it's a lot more fulfilling when we're an aesthetic democracy and the songs shape themselves that way.
Yeah. Mike, you sound like you're my kind of piano player, right? Do you actually know what chords you're playing when you play on the piano?
I kind of started way back when I was a kid playing piano, and largely because my hands weren't big enough to play a guitar. And for people and parents now of young kids who are starting in music, I always say it's a really good idea to start on the piano, because you can see the theory of music so much easier on a keyboard. There's this physical relationship between the notes that just makes a lot more sense on a keyboard than on a guitar, or a bass, or any stringed instrument, where it's relative to the tuning of the different strings rather than being strictly physical.
I agree. I started on piano too.
Really? You're talking to someone that's completely dyslexic when it comes to music, right? Never, ever worked out what I'm playing. It just literally play by ear. That's it. I haven't a clue, right? So it's like my hands will find a space, but I won't know what I'm doing. Go, what key is that? I don't know.
The key of me.
Yeah.
I typically used to have a joke saying it's the key of Yale, because Yale make locks in the UK. I don't know whether they do there. But
they do. Yeah.
never had an idea, never had a Scooby. How did you all find each other in the first place?
What's funny, and I'll start off. Mike and I had similar sort of backgrounds that after uni, we were in a lot of bands, and we each were in the music scene back in the 90s in New York City. And we both eventually, for various reasons, wound up going to law school and doing second careers in law. And we were working at a major Midtown Manhattan law firm, a few doors away from each other, not really knowing each other. No, we had similar backgrounds. Then we got together for a charity gig called Law Rocks. It's a law firm battle of the bands for charity. They happen in London as well. They happen in a lot of different cities. So we formed the our law firm band, and Peter didn't realize that we had very similar backgrounds, similar pedigrees, similar tastes, and decided we both missed doing original music. So voila.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, I guess I started the law firm band as a kind of lark, because these big New York law firms, they do anything for summer associates. They really want the summer associates to be happy, so they sign on full time. And I went through all the resumes. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of musicians among these guys. Why don't we start a band? And the firm maybe will pick up the tab and make it a summer associate exercise. And then, as Scott said, we found this Law Rocks thing, and we're like, all right, let's do that. And it was a lot of fun. It was the venue. It was a really nice venue.
So think of the Gramercy Theaters,
Gramercy Theater.
They put a lot behind it, and some law firms. It's a big thing. It's essentially a glorified wedding bands, like cover bands.
Yeah, they make you do covers. Yeah.
Right, it's all covers. Yeah, you can't.
Law Rocks. Yeah, they wanted to be like accessible to people, but yeah, we still did some fun covers, some Radiohead songs, and it wasn't total wedding band stuff anyway. But yeah, then after that, I had these songs I've been sitting on a while, and approached Scott and said, I want to get into the studio. It happens to be that my neighbor was a A&R up in Boston. So we had some mutual friends we didn't even know about. But one of them was a guy who owns a recording studio here in Montclair, which is where we made the record, Ray Ketchum, and the label, the Magic Door label, which is co-owned by Kevin March. He's the drummer for Guided by Voices, among other things. And he's a acquaintance through a friend from years ago. So it was like this kind of small world. I had no idea that all these old acquaintances were right here in New Jersey, in this little town. But that's how it came together. I said, I'd really like to kind of start getting some of this recorded and actuated, not these abstract ideas on little slips of paper. That's how I write. I just write down lyrics randomly on these index cards. But it was great. It was a great experience, and totally unexpected, and a nice turn of events.
Do you know what? I never knew this existed at all. This whole law firm, battle of the bands type thing. This is absolutely flabbergasting to me.
Well, it's interesting.
I think it started in the UK. I think it started in London.
It started here. Yeah, but but lawyers typically, or solicitors have typically over the years been the sort of death of so many bands.
True. Right. Which is why neither of us said entertainment law, because we didn't want to be that guy, at least.
You know what I mean, right? It's like the band I was in the 90s, like we got a record deal. We never actually got to complete on the record deal because it got held up in a law firm for over a year.
Of course.
By the time we got out the other end of it, we hated each other. But yeah, I find that brilliant and quite fascinating at the same time. Do you have to shake off when you're in that situation? Do you have to shake off the kind of maybe somewhat stiff persona of being involved in law?
Not really.
No,
I don't see those two mutually exclusive in a way. Neither of us work in major law firms anymore. We both work in-house counsel at different companies, so it's not quite the same. And like any person working a day job, you let your freak flag fly to varying degrees, depending on how comfortable you are with the people you're around.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some of that. I remember the first time we did that Law Rocks. Oh, Justin, right? He was our singer. And he came in with a dress shirt and tie. And I think the judges were like, take off the tie.
He's like, they just came from court.
It's like, I just came from work. What do you want from me? We still wear ties here.
Yeah.
Actually, they don't anymore, but that was a little while ago.
Like 1950s throwback. I love it.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. He was a very good singer. We had some real talent in that band.
Yeah.
It's funny how many frustrated musicians there are in law firms, I think.
I think there's frustrated musicians everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Now, especially these days, it's so hard to make money out of music, isn't it? So there's a lot of musicians out there where this is their full-time job, but then they've got 2 other jobs to pay for.
That was me before law school. I was in 2 temp jobs. And I was in 5 bands.
Yeah,
and then I was in 5 bands when I started law school, and down to 1 band after the first year of law school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we've incorporated as a nonprofit organization.
Great idea. I've got the CIC. It's a band. Yeah,
That's right.
This is whatever works these days, right? Who were your inspirations, both of you, in musically growing up?
God, everyone. It's hard to pigeonhole because every time I start doing a list, then I realize later I left.
Okay, I want the name of a band or an artist then that
I'll start.
No one would expect in there. How about that?
It doesn't really sound like the music we record, but I'd say 2 of the biggest for me were Warren Zevon and actually Steve Miller, like early Steve Miller from the late 60s, that kind of psychedelic stuff. And he had a great band back then, Boss Skaggs, and he was taught by Les Paul. He's a great guitarist, actually. And those early records, very blues, psychedelic rock. That's what I really grooved on. Really until the kind of, I don't even know what you call it, the new wave, like and Replacements and Hüsker Dü and all that started coming out. But definitely my 70s was that those guys, and Warren Zevon, just the way he can write lyrics, I think he's just one of the greatest songwriters. So those are the 2. Many more, but those are the 2 that I think were most foundational for me, actually.
I remember Q magazine, which we had over here. I don't know whether you ever saw it. Which was great music. Yeah, I loved Warren. I think everything that Warren ever put out, he used to get really good reviews in Q magazine.
Ooh. There's a new record by him that his son found all his just demo tapes in this trailer, and they fixed them up, and it's amazing. Like the first take of Werewolves of London in a hotel room where they're just making up the lyrics. It's fantastic. I love that kind of stuff. Like watching the sausage being made a little bit by someone who's so good at it that even the first just demo in a hotel room sounds like, oh, that is great.
That's great. Scott, you were saying?
I was saying, besides the obvious ones, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Joy Division, Cure, R.E.M., etc. I think Devo was a big influence on my early musical years as well.
Really?
I'm serious. I mean, I think, people just know them from Whip It, they go, they're a gimmicky new wave band, but man, they put out some really interesting stuff, and
they're so tight.
Live. Yeah,
they were so tight, and the live show is just amazing.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. There were some interesting folk stories about Devo, which we won't go into here because otherwise we might not be able to put this out. But, no, definitely some interesting stories along the way. Do you listen to anything now? Do you listen to any music of today? Or do you think some of it's lost its way a bit?
No, I do. I still think there's some really interesting stuff coming out again, and indie genre, however you want to slice and dice that genre and everything. There's some good groups now who's I'm trying to remember. I like stuff by Mitski. I like stuff by Boy Genius, Japanese Breakfast. I love the stuff she's doing. So yeah, it's good. Every genre sort of has its traps, and I think modern indie is a bit too much of whispery asthma style vocals to my taste, but there's still some good stuff coming out.
So yeah, I just drove my daughter back from college. So it was a 9-hour drive up from Virginia, and I made the mistake of letting her take over the Spotify. And there's some good stuff. I didn't remember the names because it would pop up on the screen while I'm driving, but Melaboo or something like that. I don't know. And I'm listening to it, and it's exactly what Scott said. Everybody's just whisper singing.
I love Adrienne Barker's vocals, which are very unique and the opposite of that whispery voice.
So I think she did play that.
Yeah.
That was on the list. So there was, as I said, there's some good stuff on it, but I was just like, at the end of 9 hours, you're driving, you want someone to you want some Buzzcocks or something, you know?
Yeah. I think it's harder to find stuff these days in a way. I think there's so much music out there.
So much of it, yeah.
It's harder to necessarily navigate, I think. But it's a conversation we have with people all of the time on here, which is that it's difficult for artists when they're putting stuff out there. You release something, there's 200,000 songs released the same day as whatever you release. Yeah.
That's the paradox of the democratization of technology. One thing, it says you have the ability to record things cheaply and put it out without the gatekeepers. The paradox is without the gatekeepers, how do you cut through the
How do you
mass?
get it?
Yeah.
How do you get it out there? Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Although I'd say we're still pretty old school in terms of our recording philosophy. At least I am. This setup actually here is the most I've ever done with my digital technology. Actually got my USB interface working, and I've never used it to actually record music. But so I still love going in the studio and having an engineer and really giving a crap about getting the right guitar sound and thinking about doubling stuff and all that kind of things. But I guess you can do that at home too. But there's something about being in a studio, getting the right room, all that stuff.
I have a pretty good home setup, but I still if we're going to record drums, I'd rather be in a studio that has several 15 microphones, each worth thousands of dollars, and my 5 microphones that are like a few $100s each. Not to mention the knowledge of how to actually properly mic the drums.
Yeah, mic them and getting a room sound. All that. Yeah, all that is important, I think. Anyway,
I enjoyed listening to your album. I thought it's my kind of vibe for a start.
Cool.
And there were elements sound-wise where you mentioned Hüsker Dü. I'm gonna mention another Bob Mould band, which is Sugar, who are back out at the moment. That I felt there was some really catchy, poppy, but bit edgy songs on there, which could have fitted into the kind of Sugar catalog quite nicely.
I love Sugar, and it's exactly that. You know, it's pop with edge, and I think we really try to write at their essence just good pop songs, and see where they go, and try to have some lyrics that maybe engage a little bit, but the hook is what makes the song, I think. And we try to write things that hopefully are a little earwormy and capture that pop vibe.
I can also hear the more kind of Americana type, as you say, slightly bluesy sound in there as well. Even not vocally, but stuff like the Hold Steady and whatever in there as well. Yeah. You get that? Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely an Americana on a song like Astor Place. And we, with the arrangement, tried to play into that with putting the accordion solo in, and the idea with that was the pedal steel, which was my debut on pedal steel there. Which it was not the most complex part, but even doing a simple part on pedal steel, and I have so much respect for those guys who can play the crap out of it, because it's both feet.
Yeah. Well, I've
You
got
know.
absolute respect for you doing it in the first place. So there you go. Yeah.
It really was just like, okay, they play these two strings and this one pedal. You know?
What's the most unusual moment from the record that people, if they listen very hard, will find? Is there anything in here where you hit something unusual, you left something in that was a mistake or whatever? Because that I love those moments. Yeah.
I have one, but if you got one, Scott, you can go first if you want.
No, you go ahead.
So I think that the middle part of the song called New Girl, and we had recorded that just starting off with the acoustic to a click. Then I think I put in my vocals. And then Scott, I guess you recorded it at home, but you did this thing in the middle with I don't know. I don't even know how you did it, but some sort of feedback loop or something on your acoustic bass.
I did 3 layers of boat harmonics running through a crap load of compression and reverb to create these feedback layers, basically.
Yeah, and it really works, I think, with what's going on in the song at that point, both musically and lyrically. And it was just something you dropped in the Dropbox, and I'm like, what the? Woo. Yeah, all right, that really changes this song. And then we added drums and just in that middle part, and then sweetened up the vocals with some. I think we tripled everything on that one. But yeah, so that was the one. I don't think there were any real mistakes that kept in. Actually,
there are a few little bass things that I could have corrected, but thought, no, that's kind of cool the way.
There's like little string scratches, things like that,
yeah.
every once in a while. But
yeah,
and I think on UV, I may have hit my ring against the acoustic at something. I hear a little knock in there at one point.
There you go. You see? Now, you see, this is brilliant for listeners, right? Because they're going to now go and listen intently.
Yeah, that's the idea.
That's the idea, right? With every album, you need to make sure there's something in there that then we can talk about, so that it's like we can then say to people, you've got to go listen for it.
Yeah.
The next album will have one. There's some songs that we recorded at the time, but they've been tabled for our next release. And there's at least one where we're listening back. It's like, oh no, I got to fix that bass part. I totally screwed up to somebody. No, keep it. It's perfect.
Yeah. Which one's that? Which song is that? I'm just curious.
It's the End of Man About Town, one of the little bass licks I did.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they sounded good. I didn't even know there was a mistake.
In my mind, it was.
It's a happy incident, not a mistake.
There was another that reminded me of another one, the beginning of Astor Place. Actually, I started on the wrong chord. I started on a C instead of a D. And I was like, it's already rolling. So I just slid it up. So it goes
slid it up. Just so sounds like
it sounded all right.
No, these are the little things that really make all of the difference. Those are really popular as well on Instagram and things like that. When people are scrolling through, when someone goes, oh, actually, if you listen to the start of this song and I'm playing this and then it breaks and you hear that in it, that's because it broke.
They just kept going.
And they just kept going. Kept breaking.
Well, that's what I always tell also younger musicians when they're like starting to gig and stuff, is the music doesn't stop, it keeps going, and you can mess up a lot in a show and nobody knows as long as you don't show it. Never let them see you sweat.
I remind myself at every show, because every show there's at least one mess up.
Yeah.
It's actually a sign of a really good band that they just ignore it and just carry on, right? But I think when you're young and you're in a band and whatever, people get so frustrated about it, right? And they stop and go, oh, "Come on, Derek!" But it's like, no.
Just keep going.
Just keep going. Nobody out there knows. Nobody out there knows, right?
I'll find it again. Yeah. And it's, you say, we'll get it right in the studio. And sometimes you don't even do that. And it still sounds good.
For that reason, I feel sorry for some of the big pop stars of today because everything is so slick.
It's so choreographed too, and a lot of it you have to be right. If you're, some of it's pre-recorded, you're playing to basically to tracks sometimes, right? So you can't really go off too much from it.
It's not the music anymore, then, is it? It's not. It doesn't have that kind of feel like you. The live experience is any different when you listen to a recording of some of that. Sometimes you feel it's just so like the CD or whatever. There's just nothing extra in it. There's no life in it.
There are bands that are really good just replicating the record, but they're the most boring bands to see live. And I remember one time seeing the Cars, and I love the Cars, but their live show, the one I saw, was like a complete replication of the record, which I thought was pretty boring.
Yeah, and I love like the old like live records, like Live at Leeds. Get your yayas out. They're just like friggin' playing and letting it breathe a little bit, and that stuff is. I love doing that. And even though you're listening, you're like, wow, that tempo is really that's really way too fast, isn't it? But it's kind of cool. And and part of it is the solos. I love listening to live records where they're not doing the canned solo. And as much as I love Elliot Easton, he wrote out all his solos, and they're great. They're fantastic. But then you just hear the same exact thing in the concert. And I like when people are, maybe it's the jazz blues background, but I love it when people are just going off and creating in the moment. So that's, and we do that. I've written out some of these solos, but they're always a little different because I never remember what I did in the studio.
Going back to the legal thing, it's said that actually we may see a sort of increase in the amount of live albums being produced by musicians because ultimately that live experience and that live sound is something that AI is not going to be able to replicate.
I think that's right. I think so. There's the human element, and I think there's that band, was the Velvet Sundown, which is that completely AI created band. But everything I've heard created by AI and the best AI, it's like a passable pastiche of very uninteresting music, and which is, if you view music as a commodity, like something to play in the background at a shopping mall or
lift
a
music.
cocktail party, lift music, that's fine. But you're not going to, on a long-term analog, engage humans to get engaged with music with that sort of product. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I haven't heard any that I've heard that sounded really compelling to me. I do like the canned drumming thing when you're just fooling around on GarageBand or whatever. That's pretty useful. It's better than a metronome. But the fully formed songs I've heard just don't do it for me yet.
Yeah.
I hope they never do.
Yeah.
What we hope with AI is that musicians get hold of it and they break it.
Yeah.
And I've seen some people do that with filmed AI, those clips on Instagram doing really bizarre, surreal things with AI, which I kind of like. And you're not trying to use it to replicate something that humans can otherwise create.
Yeah.
I can go for that. If someone wants to plug in their singing and they create some loops and everything else and that in some AI music maker or whatever, and then they cut it all up, a bit like Bowie used to cut everything up, cut it all up, stitch it all back together again in a different way, and then do something over the top of it. Great. That's brilliant. Yeah. That's what we need to be doing with this stuff. Yeah. Breaking it.
Totally. That's what you've always done with new technology. Any sort of artist has done. New technology comes out, you figure out a way to break it.
Yeah. That's the best way. It's what makes those sounds really different. What would you like people listening to this album to take away?
I enjoying it, really. And I'm also a fan of physical records. And here, I'll do my little. Here it is. Here's the record. And I love, like, I used to get a new record, open it up, put it on the turntable, and then just sit there with the lyrics. And that was an afternoon. You play it twice, you read through it, you get a sense of the album. This isn't like a themed album like Tommy or anything like that, but there's a certain continuity, I think, to the songs and the messages. And it's just a fun experience, finding something new, and hopefully some of the songs on there, if not all of them, will click, and some might bring you a smile, some might maybe make you scratch your head a little bit and think about things. I don't know, that sort of thing.
I'd like the community element to come into that as well, right? Because I spent a huge amount of my time in my teenage years going round to a mate's house and flicking through their record collection, and then you'd sit there one by one as you shared an album and putting it on. And it'd be great if people came back together, like over physical copies of music again, wouldn't it?
Yeah, record parties.
It'd be sharing playlists and everything. But I think some of the Gen Z or Gen Alpha, whatever I call them, I get a sense, I hear from my kids and their friends, of a sort of a backlash against all the digital technology. Some people are like hoarding old Walkmans and cassettes and going back to that, and Polaroid cameras, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's there could be like not a complete Luddite revolution, but somewhat rejection of like over digitized age.
Honestly, my friend, when I first started doing this, and I've been doing this for 5 years now, I had to go and buy myself an old stereo, right? Because I'd like, over the years, had all of the old separates and everything else. And like everything else, that all gets swished out. But no, I went out and bought myself a really old stereo again with a cassette player because a lot of the young bands were sending me cassettes. And I'm like, yes, hallelujah, brilliant. Let's have cassettes again. They're putting stuff out on vinyl. They're putting stuff out on cassettes. So I went to a gig in Bristol, which is not far from where I live here, the other day. It was a band from Malta that had been on, and a young band, and they were playing in Bristol. The queue afterwards to buy vinyl and whatever went right out the door. It's great. I think the revolution's already here, if you like. I think people want to go back to that.
Yeah, as long as they don't go back to 8-track tapes. Those were an abomination.
Boy, no, there are some technologies along the way that need to go. They can bring back mini disc. Mini disc is fine. I loved mini disc. That was okay. But
there's going to be some niche nostalgia for 8-track in the band.
Oh, come on.
Only do it 8-track.
It was so bad. You remember if the song was too long,
it would fade out.
It would fade out in the middle and click. And then it'll fade back up. I remember I had In Through the Outdoor on 8-track, and it was like Fool in the Rain. Fade.
Oh.
I was like, really? That song? It's like the best song on the record. Do it.
Oh, dear. There you go. Led Zeppelin would be turning in their grave. There we go. Listen, both of you, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for a very brief but very good introduction to Melancholy Kings. Interesting name as well. Where did that come from,
Mike?
Yeah, so we, as you well know, probably from experience, naming a band is the suckiest aspect of the band. Yeah. So we had, I don't know, remember, we were going to be the Accusers, we were going to be the Other Defectives. There's really bad names. New Jersey, where I catch the train to get to Manhattan, there was a graffiti tag of this king with spray painted crown with tears coming down. And I just was in the car going, oh, that's a Melancholy King. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. That could be the name. I threw it by the guys, and they're like, yeah, let's do it. And then I put my legal acumen to work, and we actually got the trademark registration for it.
Excellent. Suss the IP. Nice. Yeah. That's what you need to do. Listen, Mike, Scott, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. I hope the people of Great Britain, if you're listening to this, if you've never heard of the Melancholy Kings until now, Go and check out the music. For those that are too lazy to move anywhere and are listening to this on Spotify after this, all you need to do is move your thumb from there to there and push. Oh, the effort. And you're now listening to the Melancholy Kings. You can go and add some music to your playlist and share it around the ether as much as you like, as long as you, when the time is right, come and buy the album.
Special red vinyl.
Red vinyl. We will be back soon with more interviews from more bands and artists from around the world. But until then, from Mike, Scott, and myself, thanks for listening. Bye for now.